In this demonstration, I'm going to talk to you about how you can build a simple template-based site. You should have already gone through this particular slide presentation. It talks to you about how to get started, envisioning your website, how to collect data, how to, build a plan to get started with it, making the template and so forth. What we talked about in this assignment, or at least in this exercise, is that so that we have some content, what we're going to do is, go and do site reviews. So 5 websites that you really like and talk about why they're really good, what's really, makes them effective visually and content-wise and so forth. You'll have 5 pages with 5 reviews and then a landing page. So that's 6 pages total. All of those things we discussed in the PDF. Now, one of the first things I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do, just right off the bat, is how to go ahead and collect some of the image collateral that we're going to use. So one of the things that you're going to need to do for each website that you visit is that you need a screenshot. So I went ahead and I found 5 websites that I like for one reason or another, whether it's for visual design or content or both. And I'm going to go ahead and take those screenshots, and I'm going to show you how you can take those consistently, so that the sizes are consistent, and then bring them into Photoshop and then export them out into sort of a better looking, more usable format. Okay, so here are the 5 that I have. It's 2M Lab, CSS Piffle, CSS Tricks, The Great Discontent, and Craig Morrison Creative Portfolio, which I think is a nice portfolio. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take some screenshots of this. Now there's some different ways that you can do this. If you're on a Mac, there's a really nice feature where you can hold down a combination of keys, and then you can just allow it to take a picture of the entire window. So I'm going to show you really quickly on a Mac. One of the things you can do is you can hold down Command, Shift, and the number 4. And you see that my cursor turned into this little crosshair. I could either click and draw out what I wanted it to take a picture of, or if I wanted the entire window, I can hit the space bar and it turns into a little camera icon and it highlights what it's going to take a picture of. And what's nice about that is it's going to also get everything, including the browser information up at the top, with the tabs and everything else. Now, I'm going to suggest that you don't want all of that stuff, so you could take a picture like this. I'm going to hit escape and not take the picture, okay? But another way that you can do it that's even nicer to get rid of all of this browser stuff up at the top so that you don't have to deal with it later is you can go into full screen mode. And you can do this in any browser, whether it's Safari, Chrome, Firefox, whatever. I'm using Chrome right now. And so there's a shortcut set of keys, but you can also go up under View, and where it says Enter Full Presentation Mode, you see that it's Shift Command F or Shift Control F on Windows, and it will go into full screen mode, so that now I don't have to worry about taking pictures of the tabs and stuff at the top. So I'm going to do a key combination on my Mac, like I said before, which is Shift Command and the number 4 all at the same time, and I get that crosshair. Well, now if I hit the space bar, I'm going to take a picture of the entire screen and it doesn't have anything else but the website picture on it. So I'm going to go ahead and click, and it takes a picture, and what it did was it saved it to my desktop. So to get to the other website, now what I need to do is I can hover up here at the top and I can just pick a different tab, and then whenever I move down out of that space, it goes into full screen mode again. Now, if you're on Windows, you can still do this, but you're not going to have the ability to do those key commands. You'll need to use a different tool. You can either use the screen capture to capture the entire screen if you have a screen capture key, and if you don't, then you can also use what's called the Snipping Tool. And in Windows, you can go to your Start menu, and then you can go to the Accessories folder, and then inside of Accessories, there's a thing called the Snipping Tool. And so you can open that, and then you can define what you want to take a picture of that way. Okay, so these are the ways that you can get screenshots. So I'm going to go ahead and finish taking my screenshots. Okay, and then oh, I don't want that. I want to go into full screen mode. Yep, there we go. And now I'm using my key command again, hit the space bar, take a picture. I want to go up to my next one. Okay, get out of that, into full screen mode again, take a picture, and lastly, let's get this one. And one more time, do the same thing. Okay, and now I can get out of full screen mode by coming up here and saying exit. And so now I'm back into my regular window again. And the thing that's nice is that that really saved me a bunch of trouble from having to crop stuff. And the other thing is I know that they're all exactly the same size. So that's one way that you can deal with it. If you did want, if you didn't have exactly the same experience as me and you end up with all this other stuff, you can always go ahead and crop that stuff out in Photoshop. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open Photoshop, and I'm going to open those files. Let's, first of all, well, yeah, let's go ahead and open them. And the way that I can find them is I can go here, and on my desktop are all these things called screenshots. Now, if you are on Windows, it should have asked you where you wanted to save the file. It should have taken the picture and it would hold it in the snipping folder, and then you would be able, or the snipping file, excuse me, and then you would tell it where to save it. Unless you did a print screen, it saves it typically to your desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and take all of these screenshots and I'm going to open them all at once. And you see what it did, which is really nice, is that it actually went ahead and it put a drop shadow around it. That's one of the nicest things about using that feature with on a Mac for screenshots. Whenever you do Command-Shift-4, and then instead of drawing drawing out what you want it to actually capture, if you just hit that space bar, it captures the whole window. It will also put this nice drop shadow around it. So that keeps us from even having to deal with it, which is really nice. So if you wanted to see what it looked like in the back, you could come down here. You could create a new layer where this little page icon is in the layers. And if your layers panel if it's not showing up, you can go up to Window, and then you can tell it to show here, and it's also a shortcut key of F7. So I'm going to create a new layer, and this layer with the sort of the checker box, that means it's empty, it's transparent. I'm going to take that layer and I'm going to drag it down here below, and just so I can see what it would look like, let's say on a white background, over here on the left in the bottom of this tool panel, I'm going to make sure that my foreground color is white. It is. And now I'm going to sort of hover up higher, and right now my gradient tool is showing. That's what this little tool is. If I click and hold it though, I can get my paint bucket tool. Your paint bucket tool might have been available, but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take my paint bucket now, and while this bottom layer, layer number 1, is selected, I'm going to click, and so that is what the drop shadow is going to look like. So it's kind of a nice effect. But I'm going to go ahead and not only am I going to turn that visibility of that layer off, I'm going to throw this layer away because we really don't need it. Put it in this little trash can down here. We really don't need it because, yeah, it's either going to save it out as white in the background or we're going to save it out as a PNG. Now, let's look at the image size. Okay, so go up here to image and then image size. And you're going to see that this thing is pretty darn large. If you look at, well, for some reason it's showing it to me in inches. Let's look in pixels. It's nearly 14,000 pixels wide. That is gigantic. If in my layout, I've already decided that I'm going to have an image sitting next to text side by side, and even really big screens, really big screens are like maybe 2,000 pixels or 2,200 pixels or whatever. They're, I don't need something that's 14,000 pixels wide. So realistically, I probably don't want my picture to be any larger at any given time than say about 800 pixels. I probably don't even want it that big, but maybe I do. So I'm going to go ahead and make it 800 pixels. And notice that right here, when I typed that, because this constraint was turned on, the height was automatically adjusted. Okay. Now, something else I want you to notice here, let me change that back to what it was before. Okay, originally. Something else that I want you to notice is if I turn that off, now if I were to change this to like 800, look what happens. does something weird. It like pancaked the image a little bit because it didn't adjust the height. It just made it narrower. So that's not what I want either. So let's go back to 1394. I'm going to turn this on. Now the other last thing I want to show you is where it says resample. I want you to notice that if I change, while resample is turned on, if I change the width again to 800, look up here at what happens to the dimensions, okay? Notice that the dimensions actually changed. What that means is that it literally threw the data away. So it's going to, as soon as I click OK and then save it, meaning that it went from being a 3.65 megabyte file to being 1.2, which is, less than half. So that is pretty significant. It's throwing a lot of the actual file information away. And whenever it's doing that, so I want to show you one other thing, change it back to its original. If I were to take resample off, see what it does? It constrains these three properties and it leaves this dimensions out up here, meaning it's not going to actually degrade the image. It's actually going to keep the same file size, which is 3.65 megabytes, and it's going to rearrange the way that these the resolution basically is. Okay, so if I change this to a 1394, then and change it to 800, what it's doing is it's now saying that the resolution is 1.7 times what it was before. So it's not 100%. It's basically 100% plus another 75% basically. So it's really making the resolution much higher. Anyway, I'm going to undo that and make sure that resample is turned on. And this is the way I want you to change your file sizes. Okay, so you can make this width whatever you want, just don't make it too big, and hit OK. And now my picture looks very small, but really it's being shown at 50% because the last time it was too big for the screen. So if you want to look down here in the bottom left corner in Photoshop, you can change how big it is by just typing in 100%. That's how big it would be at 100%. At no time do I ever expect my picture to be bigger than that, okay? So now I need to save it for the web. To do that, I go up to File, Save for the Web, or Save for Web, and I could choose to have, in this JPEG, this is a 60% quality. Notice that it's putting it on a white background. This presupposes that I expect it to be on a white background. Well, I am going to put mine on a white background. Let me show you why this might be preferable than, say, doing it as a PNG24. PNG24 is going to be lovely, and the thing that would be nice is that, you could have this moving on top of other stuff, that you could see below the transparency or the transparent, drop shadow, and it would be lovely and all of that. But if that's not what I really plan on having, look at the file size. PNG24 is 305K. That's huge. It's a very big file. Whereas the JPEG is only like 70, 71K, something like that. And this quality looks totally fine to me. I'm sort of checking it out, and it's not bad. So I think that I can live with this. It is in fact a screenshot of someone else's website. Okay, so I need to make sure though that the JPEG is actually selected here, and I'm going to go ahead and save it. Okay, and I'm going to navigate to where my web stuff is kept. So wherever you're keeping your web stuff for this class, and then you go. I'm going to create a new exercise 4 folder. Okay, and then inside of that, I'll create yet another folder called images. All right, and this is where I'm going to save my file, and I'm going to make sure that, yep, it is in fact a JPEG, so I'm going to get rid of this long stupid name, and I'm going to call it now like site01, okay? And we'll hit save, and that's that. And basically now what I can do is close this original file. I'm going to hit don't save because I already saved my web version of it, and now I can do the exact same thing to all the rest of these files, and you'll have all of your screenshot collateral ready to go. I should add a quick caveat though, when I say do the exact same thing to all those files, all the rest of these, I don't mean that you need to make the folders again, like for exercise 4 and images and so forth. You can just save your new files inside your images folder that you already created. Okay, so now you're ready to go.